Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. For those who are just joining right now, we're going to get started in a minute or so, but let us know in the chat where in the world you're joining from today. We have a pretty global audience. Leona, where are you today? I didn't even ask you that.
I'm currently in Indianapolis.
Okay. I am back in Canada, in BC. Let us know in the chat where in the world you're joining today's webinar from. And then we also got a poll to get started to see where everybody is at in their content creation, monetization journey. So let's see if I can get that launched as well. So as you're coming in, let us know where you are in your content journey. Are you monetizing yet? Do you want to be monetizing more? I think probably everybody in some capacity. But let us know what your biggest pain point is. And then also let us know in the chat where you're joining from. And in the meantime, I'll get started on introducing Leona, our amazing speaker who's with us today. Leona, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. The description for this webinar sounded great. So many cool takeaways about learning how to monetize and take our content anywhere in the world, which you've been doing now. Is it for over 4 years? Is that true?
Almost 4 years, like a little over 3.5. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Living the dream that many of us might be living in some way. But there's a lot that we can learn from you. We've got Andy joining in from Mexico. We've got South Africa in the house. Please let us know in the chat where you're joining from. And today's speaker is Leona Marlene. Thank you for joining. She's a seasoned travel content creator and digital nomad who has now inspired over 200,000 eager travelers across her social media platforms. And her journey began about 4 years ago when she sold all her belongings to embrace full-time travel. Wow. Do you have a home base now, Leona, or what's
I
your
don't. I still
status?
travel full time. Everything I own fits in the back of my Jeep. And so I kind of store things seasonally at my family's house, but I still don't have a home base yet.
Wow. Okay. How does that feel? Are you getting sick of it or are you loving it?
I realize that I need to stay in locations for like at least a month. Otherwise, I get so burnt out. So I am trying to stay. This year is like a big focus on staying in locations for like a month to 3 months. I'm not sick of it yet, but I am loving that like longer stints in each location.
Totally. Slow matting. That resonates with
Hmm.
me very much. Okay, great. Good to know where your head is at. And so if you aren't familiar with Leona, she's really become a go-to resource for realistic, unfiltered, and inspiring travel content, bringing firsthand experience and valuable insights to help you navigate the world of travel. So thank you so much for being here, Leona. I am the moderator today. If you're new to this webinar series, my name's Sam. This is such a cool gig. I get to meet amazing content creators like Leona who are traveling the world, monetizing their content, creating unique revenue streams for themselves, but also going that extra mile to share with all of us how to do this and how we can thrive and have more freedom and flexibility as well. And so all of our past webinars have been recorded and are on YouTube. Definitely check them out if you're new here today. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So you'll see there's a chat box. I saw a few more people. Israel, Salt Lake City. Okay. That is the chat box. There's also a Q&A box. So if there's any questions you have for Leona as she's going through her webinar today, please put them there and we'll come back at the end and go through them. If you are new here, just a quick word about SafetyWing. SafetyWing is building a global social safety net for remote workers and nomads. So I'm guessing most of you fall within this category or aspire to fall within this category. SafetyWing is creating a suite of products with all of us in mind and really wants to become your home country on the internet. And so SafetyWing is most known for nomad insurance, fastest growing product, affordable health and medical coverage anytime you're traveling outside of your home country. But that's just the first product. There's now a suite of products on there, and really the mission is to remove any type of barrier preventing somebody from having the types of equal opportunity and freedom and travel that Leona and I both sounds like we experience a lot. So that's a little bit about SafetyWing. We'll tell you a bit more about how you can join us in this mission later on in the webinar. But at this point, I think it's a good time to pass things over to you. How you doing, Leona? Ready?
Perfect. I'm ready. Let's go ahead and share.
And then if you did just join us, you'll see we've got a poll going on. Please vote in that. We'll share the results in a second. Oh, there you go. That looks perfect.
Perfect. All right. Let's dive in. All right. Well, Sam did a great intro for me, so I don't even really need to introduce myself, but we're going to dive in today to monetizing your travels and mastering your money. So like Sam said, drop where you're joining from. Would love to see where everyone's from. This webinar is going to be jam-packed with so much information, as much as we can squeeze in the next hour. So we're going to dive right in. There also may be some like affiliate links that we mentioned, and because of the way affiliate links work, I just need to mention that verbally, because we will be sharing a lot of different things, perhaps in chat or in these slides. So before we start, grab a pen and notebook, take some notes. This is an investment in yourself, and I really think you're going to get so much information out of this. There will be a live Q&A at the end of the session, and there is no such thing as a dumb question. I have taught a class similar to this multiple times, and I think people get really intimidated to ask questions because they feel like it's dumb or they should know it. And this is a safe space. Like, we're all open to learning here, and I just want to encourage you to ask any question you have in the chat. So we've dropped that poll, which best describes you. You're interested in content creation, but you're not really sure where to start. If you're having trouble monetizing your social platforms, or you're already monetizing, but you're looking to make more. I don't know if we have the results for that poll yet. I am obviously kind of falling into number 3. Obviously, if you're monetizing already, you're probably looking for more ways to monetize and create creative revenue streams. But I'm curious which bucket we're all falling into. I see those results. So most of us are having trouble monetizing. Few of us are monetizing but want to make more. But it looks like we've at least all started. So that's the great news with those results. So basically, no matter where you're at in your journey, looks like you're monetizing already or you want to make more money. I'm going to touch on a bit of everything to help you figure out how to make your next 5 or even 6 figures for campaigns. I know sometimes it seems so unattainable and there's so much going on in the industry, but I've kind of broken it down into 7 different ways. And so we're going to go through a lot of those different revenue streams. Oh, next slide. Okay. About me, like we already have a good intro, but I am Leona. I have been traveling full time for 3 years, living nomadically. I'm a remote work enthusiast. I love finding ways to make income like creative and fun. I love having multiple different streams of income and finding new ways to build revenue streams. I love negotiating. I keep getting calls with management at this point, and I just like love negotiating so much that I am not willing to give that to someone yet. But I love helping people build a freedom-based lifestyle and travel more. And that's kind of all encompassing of what this webinar is. We're going to talk about how to get the most out of your money and then how to make more money doing what you love. So I am a travel creator. That is my full-time role. I teach people how to travel more for less, and I help people make travel a part of their lifestyle and career by identifying their skill set and figuring out how you can work online. There are so many opportunities out there, but this one today is going to be mainly focused on the art of brand partnerships from a creator aspect, and then strategic financial planning and like credit cards 101. The second part of this course is a little bit shorter, but will appeal to those based in the US just because credit cards are a bit different here. But I don't think I could mention being able to travel full time and being able to be a full-time creator without being able to use my money in a very strategic way. So module 1 is all about building your personal brand, 7 ways you can make 4K in the next 4 months, mastering the art of brand negotiations, managing those relationships and expectations when you have a campaign, Media Kit 101, why you need it, how to successfully complete a collaboration, and pricing. Pricing is one of the biggest things in this industry that we need to have more transparency around. You can tell it's such a new industry because of the way there is such a discrepancy with pay. So I'm going to help you kind of lay the groundwork of how you should price yourself as well. So First, with building your brand, this is going to look a little bit different for everyone, but the common denominator here is community. So sharing what you like and the people will come. I think it's important to know when you're starting out, you may feel very overwhelmed. There's so much different information you're going to be able to share, but really honing in on what do you enjoy, what makes you you, and what makes you unique, and sharing that content. So research others in your niche and identify what's working for them, and then kind of pull those apart and add that element that makes you you. Because sometimes like we think like, oh, I have to recreate the wheel. You don't. You have to see what's doing well, what's already performing well, and how can you make that something that is very specific to the content that you want to share. And you can also do this by studying your analytics and your hooks to see what's working. A lot of creators, I work with creators one-on-one occasionally, and they are so surprised when they are like, I have no idea what's working. And I'm like, have you checked your analytics? Let's look at the past 30, 60, 90 days. You've been posting every day. What's performed well? Does it have to do with a trending sound? Was it a controversial hook? Was it the way, there's a visual hook. There's always a visual hook. There's the caption, that's a hook. And there's this text on screen, which is a hook. So there's 3 different ways you can kind of incentivize people to watch your content. And so really analyze, like there's an art to creating that content, and how can we analyze it to see how it's working for you. And then share you, be personal. I always say you are not for everyone, and that's okay. You don't want to be for everyone because you want to find people that are very specific to you. And a lot of times I recommend being not for everyone by being just a tad bit controversial. Like, do you have an unpopular opinion about a destination, or do you have a unique angle that you can share that you haven't seen anyone else share? I think it's really important to stand out a bit. And by doing that, you're not going to be for everyone. And then create one different video 3 ways. This is one of my favorite tips. Like, if you have an itinerary, let's say for a destination, do a voiceover, and then do a trending audio, and then do text on screen. Try every, like, one video idea. I know sometimes it's so overwhelming to come up with different content ideas. So I always try to execute one idea in 3 or 4 different ways. And that helps so much to identify what sort of content my audience is drawn to. Some people are able to create short form video content that's a minute plus, and that does well every time. And when they create the trending audio, that doesn't do as well. So it's important to kind of put out different avenues and like different styles of content to see what your audience is drawn to. I also think it's really important to just experiment and play with that. Also identify what you like creating, and that's going to really help you work smarter, not harder, because coming up with the ideas and executing on those ideas is sometimes the hardest part. But I will say you should definitely be creating some sort of trendy, those 7-second clips, especially like for Instagram, just because that trending sound, those 7-second videos do well, but that is more of your top of funnel content. That's going to get more eyes on your content, but what's going to make your audience hit follow? What's going to make them stay? They're going to find you because of this video, and then they're going to come to your page, but what does your page say about you? Think of it as this portfolio that is all encompassing of everything you have to offer. Okay, so next we're going to dive into the 7 ways you can start monetizing today. I find that most people are scared of what people think of them, and they're overwhelmed, and so they don't know where to start. And so some of these are ways that you don't necessarily have to put yourself out there too much, but you can build active or passive revenue streams. And these are just some of the ways that I'm going to speak on, because I think these are maybe perhaps some of the most common or easiest to get into, but there are truly dozens of different ways. I have an ebook that I'm going to share. I'll drop a Flowdesk link after this, and you'll get all the resources to this class. But I have thought of so many other different ways to create revenue streams. I just want to touch on these 7 today because these are going to be the most lucrative, I think, in my opinion. So UGC, first off, is user-generated content. This has been around forever, but really this started to grow a lot with TikTok and Instagram and just like short form video in general. It's basically any form of promotional content that is created by users of a brand rather than the brand itself. So we see a lot of this on TikTok, for example. It's like get ready with me videos, or people are doing their makeup and sharing their favorite products organically. This became really highly anticipated by brands because businesses that are using UGC have seen that it's most authentic and it's resonating with their audience more so than the content that the brands are creating. And millennials trust UGC 50% more than content that is very obviously branded. So there's so many different types of UGC content. There's tutorials, there's trends, there's product demos, there's products reviews, there's unboxing videos, educational and informative content. And brands are typically really, really behind with content in general, and they can't keep up with the ever evolving trends. So this is where creators can kind of bridge that gap for them. And if you think about UGC content in the travel space, it becomes things like vlogs and tips and itineraries, or things I wish I knew before visiting Japan, or maybe your overall experience with a tour agency or a country or destination. And then unpopular opinions, like I said, being a little bit controversial. Sometimes tourism companies really enjoy that because you have a unique angle. I have a few friends that have cats or dogs and they travel with them. And so they travel from the destination, making it like pet friendly. And then there's foodies. And so you're going to travel to a destination, making it foodie focused. So there's all of these different angles that you can work on UGC content with tourism brands, but also with other brands as well. Maybe you're interested in travel and having that freedom lifestyle, but you are more so into beauty or fashion. You can do UGC for every type of content. Like every business is using UGC right now. It's just a matter of what you can offer them and knowing how to pitch yourself to them for UGC, which we'll get into later. Things to know before you start UGC. So it's different than having social media. So you need to showcase your best work in a professional way, which means creating a portfolio. And you can absolutely do this on Canva. That's probably my number one source just because it's free, it's easy, there's templates, it's very easy to get started. But you want to work with brands to identify their marketing goals initiatives. And this is similar to working with brands on Instagram, but with UGC, it's really important because a lot of brands create, let's give an example, seasonal content for Christmas content that starts getting created September, October. And so identifying what the brand wants to do and creating that content for them in advance is going to make sure that you need to identify their marketing goals, you understand their initiatives, and you do that by communicating. So knowing the right questions to ask these brands are huge. Like, what are their goals? Who is their ideal audience? What upcoming launches do they have? What are products do they have that they're looking to promote? What sort of content has performed well for them in the past, and how can you kind of recreate that? So that's the difference with UGC. Is like you're really creating content specifically for the brand. You're not even posting this content. This is content that they're using for ads, and they will pay for this because they don't have to pay the production fee to produce it themselves. So this is a really great avenue to making that income and not even having to post on your social medias. And so you don't need a large following to create UGC. This has nothing to do with your social media account. Sometimes that helps because there's been times I've worked with brands in a UGC capacity and a content creator capacity, but they are typically very different things. You can pitch for both, but you do not need a social media following, which is why I love this option. So when you are pitching, it's important to not share your social media account as a portfolio because that could be confusing to brands. They're like, are you pitching as a creator? Like maybe you don't have enough reach. And so you're pitching to them as a creator, sharing your social media account, but they're not interested in having content in your social media. So it's really important to have a separate portfolio that encompasses all the sort of work you can do. And if you have never posted any sort of content on social media, for example, create videos and upload them to your portfolio. And you don't need to post on social media, but you can give brands an idea of the sort of work that you're able to create for them. Like I said, brands, hotels, tourism boards, they all need UGC content and they aren't great at creating this organic content. So a creator can really come in and help fill that gap. UGC, it may seem overwhelming, but you don't need a lot to get started. I use my phone. Typically, like the last few models of the iPhone are great. You don't need a camera. If you want to get a camera, that's great. I typically tell people like the best camera is the one you have. If you think you need to go spend $700, $800 on a new camera to get started, you don't. And I think the biggest thing is just starting with what you have and making that work. And editing software is going to be necessary to edit these videos. There's so many great softwares on the computer, but on your phone, CapCut and InShot are some of my favorites. I probably use those 90% of the time. They are just so easy to navigate and do everything you need. You can do mild color grading in them as well. And then just starting. That's all you have to do. You don't need to have anything special. I think it's also important to learn how to pitch yourself for these opportunities, because that's where you're going to make the most money. These opportunities can also be found on platforms. The screenshot I have right here is platform called Coley. You can see that they're looking like Arm& Hammer cat litter. They're looking for some UGC content, DSW shoes. They're looking for content. These opportunities exist. There's less pay because they are a bit more competitive, and some of these platforms, um, they have like some slimy terms sometimes. Like occasionally they'll try to get like full rights to your images, which we don't want to offer that ever. That is a huge upcharge, which we'll talk about later when we get into pricing. But I think it's just important to know how to pitch yourself because you're going to be able to make the most money that way. You can also use apps like Fiverr or Upwork. Those are going to typically be less budget and much more work. So maybe $100, $200 for 30 videos. Like there's a lot more demand for those platforms, a lot more people looking for opportunities on those platforms, and they just don't pay as well. But we will kind of touch on kind of where to find those opportunities on the next few sides. But pitching yourself, if you get anything out of this webinar, let it be that you should learn how to master the art of pitching. Last year was my first year doing content creation full time, and I've already surpassed, and this is my second year, and this year I've already surpassed what I made last year just by tweaking my pitches. And I feel like it helps so much to like really know exactly what you're offering. And so that is my main hope for you, is that you take away how to pitch yourself. And then affiliate marketing is the third way that we're going to talk about making money. Affiliate links are basically personalized links that allow you to earn a small commission by promoting a brand and its products. If you're sharing products with your audience, this is a great way to earn pretty passive money. For example, I'm a SafetyWing ambassador and I earn money by promoting them. You can too if you sign up for their program. I think there's a link that will be dropped in the chat, but I would definitely recommend becoming a SafetyWing ambassador. Another platform is like travel payouts. If you are in the travel niche, this is one of the best programs in the travel space. All of these platforms are free to sign up for, and you get to promote companies like Get Your Guide or Booking or Viator. So if you're ever going, you're in Japan and you do this epic food tour and it's on Viator, you're able to find that on travel payouts and then share that link. And then anyone else who books, you'll earn a commission. Amazon, I think we're all familiar with that. If you share any sort of product, you got your backpack, your favorite tech gear while traveling, your favorite, dual monitor setup, whatever that may be, you can create an Amazon storefront. And this isn't a huge income stream for me. I travel full time, so I'm pretty minimal. I don't have a home base. So I'm not typically buying a lot of product, but I have creator friends who make 5, 10K a month promoting products and things that they're buying, especially if you're in like a fashion or beauty niche. That stuff typically does really well. And then Rakuten is one of my favorites. It's typically known more so as a cashback app, but it's particularly popular in like fashion and lifestyle niches. It also has some travel brands as well, but is a great affiliate program for creators looking to promote tours. It kind of is similar to travel payouts. There's a lot of like 30%, back if you recommend a tour on Booking or Viator. So these are more so, I would say the first three are great for travel. And then if you're more like a product person, Rakuten and Amazon would be great to get started with. And like I said, they're passive. You can build a storefront on your website. You can have links in your bio. And if you're comfortable sharing, if your audience is kind of like, wait, what protein powder do you use? What, backpack are you using? This is just a great way to get rewarded for products that you're already sharing with them anyways. Next up is creator funds. So this is how you can get rewarded for posting consistently, and this varies across platform, but some of my favorite, probably in this order too, are TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. That's basically all the platforms. But if you are posting consistently, you want to get rewarded for that. And so with your blog, there's Mediavine, She Media, there's a few others. Blogging isn't my strong suit. It's something I'm looking to get into more, but a lot of my friends recommend Mediavine or She Media, and you do have to have a certain amount of views. But I think Mediavine just opened a program where if you have like 10,000 monthly views, you can start getting monetized. Facebook is doing ads on Reels right now. That I wouldn't say it pays great, but it pays something. Pinterest, the Creator Academy Challenge, was last year. I don't think it's active, but I did see some talk about it coming out again. I made over $10,000 last year from Pinterest doing idea pins, which was wild to me. It's one of the best platforms that I've ever seen. They shut it down, I think, last year, but if it comes back, I will definitely like find a way to share that because it was such an amazing program. TikTok as well, TikTok Creative Challenge and the Creative Rewards Program is such an amazing program. I share the screenshot because in January, I made $500 from TikTok. Most of that was from one video. One video got like 1 million views. I think total, like I kept earning like as the views increased. So I think total I maybe earned $600 or $700, but just in January alone, I earned $500 from TikTok. And then just in the last 90 days from Instagram, so from January to April, I've earned $64 on Instagram. It's wild how differently the platforms pay because I post typically the same videos across all platforms, as I would highly recommend you do as well, because you want to make sure that you are everywhere and everyone sees your content. So if you are making Instagram Reels, repost that to TikTok, repost that to Facebook ads, repost that to Pinterest idea pins, and repost that to YouTube Shorts. There's an app called Repurpose.io, and it's one of the best platforms I've seen for repurposing your content. So you kind of just set up these workflows that as soon as you post something to TikTok, you can schedule your post to get posted to other platforms as well. And it saves so much time and allows you to be everywhere at the same time. But short form video right now is king. I would obviously recommend still, focusing on other content if short form video is not your bread and butter. If you're like, I can't stand it, unfortunately, I do think you should try to do a little bit of it because it is really what the focus is right now. But YouTube is also really great in terms of long-term income streams and monetizing there. So I think focusing on, if you like long form video, focus on YouTube. But in terms of creator funds that are paying the best, it is TikTok. So hopefully there is no TikTok ban because it is one of the best programs out there right now for creators. Next up is digital products. Digital products are great because they are passive. You spend an hour, a week, a month, even creating this piece of content, and then it's passive after that. You create it once and you can resell it over and over and over again. And so there are so many different avenues to selling digital products. You can sell your travel guides. You can do this on apps like Rexby or Thatch or Canva and like create them yourselves. You can have an Etsy storefront or a stand store. You could have templates, whatever sort of template, like there's meal planning, there's budget templates, travel planners, photography, ebooks or courses. Like if you have something to teach someone, there's virtual tours, photography, selling your photography or your art, Lightroom presets or video filters. All of these are incredible avenues of digital products. And the thing is, especially with like planners or budgeting sheets, you can make them in Google Sheets and then share the link. Like, set up a landing page, make sure you're working to grow your email list because we don't own these social media platforms. So as much as I'm saying like short form video is king, it absolutely is, but it's also not content that we own. So I always try to think like if I have a video that I'm promoting, how can I make that into a blog post? How can I maybe put that in a long form video on YouTube? How can I also summarize that and send that to my email list? And so there are lots of ways to kind of like strategically set up this workflow so it's not as manual, but building your email list is huge. And I would recommend doing it even if it's 100, 200 people to start out. You have access to these people. If social media has gone down, if there's an outage and you can't post any content, that has happened many times. If an app gets banned or is no longer accessible in whichever country you're in. So growing your email list is going to be huge, and then you can reach your audience. So identify their pain points and make a product to solve that pain point, and then make sure you can reach them at scale. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is definitely going to be building that email list. And then in terms of digital products and how to sell them, like apps like ManyChat are some of my favorite. It basically sends a link when someone comments. So this example, I put like comment transfer for a video tutorial on how to transfer your credit card points. Over 1,000 people commented on that video. I would have never been able to like keep up with that many people commenting because stuff gets lost. And after like I think 150 notifications or something, they start to disappear. So as I'm, creating other content, if this video keeps doing well, I'm not going to be able to keep up with all of the comments on every post. And so apps like ManyChat really allow you to automate those features and get back to people, ensuring that you never miss a message and everyone can stay, everyone gets your offerings. If people have questions, they can respond. It's like very interactive. It's like sending a DM. It's just automated. So if someone responds, it does show up as an unread message and I can get back to them. But for the most part, people just want the resource. So I'm sending them the resource. And if they have questions, they get back to me. But in terms of promoting those digital products, dedicating social posts every month, at least once a week, so maybe 4 a month, using funnels like ManyChat to help you organically automate those offering, figure out the problem you're trying to solve, and make sure you identify their pain points and really speak to that person. There's like you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. And so sometimes it may seem like this is really specific, but that's exactly what you want. There's a very specific problem you're trying to solve for. And how can you do that by offering this product? And then be a little controversial to pique interest. So there's a lot of people right now. There's another creator like calling herself like lazy moneymaker or something like that. And it's very controversial to people because they're like, oh, you can't make money being lazy. And I think her whole idea is like, you can, like, by prioritizing your energy and, making these passive offerings that really identify a pain point for people and they continue to come back and purchase products from you. So it's not necessarily lazy, but I think using words like that, like sometimes I use a negative hook, like, is this not the best? This is the only buffet to eat at in Vegas. I use that hook and it triggered people because it's like, obviously they may not like that buffet. They may have gone to another buffet, but it's like using these little pieces of hooks that are really controversial that are going to get people to sign up for your email list or sign up or purchase an offering from you because you're doing something different than everyone else is doing. Okay, hosting your own courses and speaking engagement is another way. I've taught a few different classes and I've done a few different speaking engagements on various topics. It's a great way to put yourself out there if you enjoy teaching or public speaking. If you have something to share, share it. I think that's the biggest thing is like just putting yourself out there. I've done even like speaking courses for a company that was wanting to encourage their employees to take more PTO, which I loved. And they're like, can you build us something that helps our employees maximize their PTO? And they loved that idea. And I was like, that is such a cool idea. Like there's so many different companies out there offering stuff like that to even their employees that I would never even had thought of to pitch for, but they ended up reaching out to me. And then I got the idea of like, oh, I could do this for other companies. But in terms of hosting your own courses or any speaking engagements, there's so many like stepping stones that people feel like they have to get over to make them happen. But even like this, we're using Zoom. You can use apps like StreamYard, Webinar Jam, Teachable, Kajabi. StanStore is probably one of my favorite resources for creators because they have everything set up in one place. You'll need a paywall if you're charging for something like this. And so these are some of the best apps if you're going to set that up. And then having a landing page, like I said, Stan just created their landing pages, which is really great. So you don't even have to have a website. You can just create a landing page for this offering or multiple offerings to kind of redirect people through the flow. And then you can also record a webinar once and continue to sell it. And I think people having access to this information over and over becomes really helpful. And so that almost becomes a passive income stream because you go live once, you record yourself, you offer this value, and then you can sell, at a discounted rate. Hey, you missed the live. Here's the live. If you want to get it, here's everything we talked about. So there's lots of different ways to kind of go about this route, but it doesn't have to be as big of a deal as it seems. It can be a little scrappy. And I worked in startups. I worked at companies like Uber and Theranos, and I learned how to be really scrappy because a startup is kind of a wild place. And so I think that's why it helps me to kind of like write out what apps we need, what paywalls do we need, like what steps do we need to set this up. And it may not be perfect the first time, but you're going to learn so much through trial and error. And I think that's the number one thing to remember. Next up is group trips. I wanted to add this here because I know creators that are making 5, 10K per trip. And it's such an incredible way to connect with your community and get paid to travel. Even if you have a smaller audience, I think this is so great. There's like Trova Trip, Intrepid Travel. There's a few others, but allows you to make money while, traveling with like-minded people. And is such a great way to earn income on trips you're already going on. Like even if you are someone who travels full time, say you're going to be in, Bali for a few months, you host a trip for a week out of that time, and that basically is able to cover your living expenses during that time. And so there's just so many creative ways to kind of go about making money, but that is a big one right now as well. People want people to travel with and they don't want to do it alone. Brand partnerships is the biggest way I think you can make money. So if all the ways we've talked about so far, you're like, those don't as require you to be like as social media present, I guess we could say. These require you to be a little bit more active on social media. This is where your following does come into play a bit more. And there are platforms like this. So these are all platforms that share opportunities for brands that are currently hiring for different projects. So like you saw earlier that Coley screenshot I shared, like they were looking for Arm & Hammer and DSW creators. This is exactly the type of opportunities that you'll find here. I think pitching is absolutely still going to be the best way to work with brands. But if you're just starting out and pitching seems intimidating and you're not really sure what to pitch for, or you just don't even know how a campaign runs from start to finish, this could be such a great way to get experience. So look into these, join a few of these, but also pitch directly. These platforms do require a lot of work and they don't typically pay as much. A lot of times my strategy is to actually look at the brands that are offering opportunities on this platform and then message them directly, because I have actually landed one or two opportunities like this. I have a list, so I should confirm. It's very few amount because I don't spend too much time on these platforms anymore. But let's say this company is offering, they want 10 photos for $400 and 2 social posts. If I pitch them directly, that's probably going to be a multi-thousand-dollar campaign. But because they're going through this platform, they know that people are starting off, they're a bit more less likely to negotiate. But I have also negotiated on these platforms directly and have turned a campaign that's like $800 into closer to $2,000 just by negotiating deliverables or saying, hey, this rate's a little low, but I would really love to work together. So just don't be afraid to ask. The worst they can say is no, but if you're not asking, the answer is already no anyway. So I'm a really big proponent of making sure you get paid your worth. And I don't recommend doing work for free at all, and some of these have a lot of free campaigns, but you have to start somewhere. So what's it worth to you? I think that's really important to know what your time is worth. Brand partnerships. This is where your following, like I said, comes into play the most. But if you have a small small following, it's literally not a problem at all. I started working with brands on and off, like in 2016. I've kind of always been so interested in the creator space, mainly because I started as a photography business in college and always just love taking photos of like random products and styling different things. And my first campaign was actually with ClassPass. I think I had like a $500 campaign to post a photo for their like at-home workouts. And that blew my mind. That was insane. I think I had a couple thousand followers then. I don't even think I had 5K, but I was able to market my photography skills and I was already using the program. So I loved it. And I just messaged them and told them like I was so excited about their launch. So if you have a smaller following, just focus on your analytics and any ROI conversions you already have. So for example, I just worked with an eSIM company and I have been using this eSIM company for years. I love them. So that's another thing, is only work with brands you love, you like, you trust, because your authenticity is huge. But I pitched them and it was like, hey, here's some ROI that I've already gotten for you. I haven't even worked with you, but I've written, in my email list or my digital downloads, I recommend like my favorite eSIM, and hundreds of people have already signed up using it. So they saw that and I was able to get a campaign with them, which I was super stoked about. So a smaller following typically means you have a higher engagement rate, and it means your audience is listening to you. So following is actually becoming much less important. And I think that's important to know if you're starting out, because it can feel really intimidating and like you're competing with people who have multi-hundreds or millions of followers. And that's just not the case. If you really know how to pitch yourself and you know what sort of like what you can offer and what sort of content the brand is looking for, that's going to really set you apart. And then organically share things you're already loving so your audience is primed and ready to support you. If you all of a sudden decide you want to start working with brands and you're just posting links every day, but you've never posted a link before, that could be really overwhelming. So do that in a really authentic way. And your your audience will love it, especially if it's stuff that they're asking you already. That's just being very genuine and helpful. That's not, spamming them with products and pushing campaigns in their face. And then be everywhere and be active with your audience. So like I said, post on all platforms, respond to your DMs. I know it seems like the smallest piece of advice, but your audience is taking time out of their day to message you, to chat with you. I try to get back to every single DM. I'm actually better at DMs than my text because I just don't have time for both. And I definitely this is my job. I want to take it seriously. I just think it's important to really show up and help people that are showing up for you by supporting you. And then finding brands to work with. So like I said, work with brands you know, you love, and you trust. Identify who your peers are working with. That's a great way. When I first started out, I would look at other creators in the space that were showing up on my feed. How many followers did they have? What type of brands were they working with? And I would make a list of these brands. And I'm like, oh, I do have an upcoming trip. Maybe I could use this train app and try to work with them. So I was really strategic, what do I have going on in my life? And what brands are already paying creators? Because I didn't necessarily want to be reaching out to brands that had no budget. So how do you know which brands have budget? Which brands are already running ads with other creators in the space? And then what products are you already using? This is a huge one. When you are starting out, look, what's your favorite airline that you're flying? What's your favorite hotel brand? What skincare products are you using? What brands are you using on the daily? If you're going to buy a new backpack, what brand are you looking at first? So looking at what you like is really going to help you identify what brands you can start working with. And obviously there's a dream list. Here's my dream brands to work with. But I have been pitching my dream brands every year. I mean, honestly, every quarter for years. I just landed one of those opportunities with an airline, and I'm really excited about that. But I would have never thought that was possible. That was on the dream bucket list brand list. And it happens because you're consistently posting content, you're still growing, you're building your expertise, you're mastering your pitch, and you continuously follow up. So, and then you reach out to the right people. I do think there's a massive lack of professionalism in this industry. And so if you're emailing a brand hey babe, want to work with you, which you would be surprised. A lot of people send me a DM pitch and they're like, this is what I said. And I'm like, you're treating it like a girl you just met at a bar and you want to follow up and have a dinner date. This is a brand. You have to be professional. So make sure you're reaching out to the right people, which also means make sure you're finding the correct email list. Avoid emailing info at or help at or support at. A lot of times, if you do a little bit of research, you can find a company's email on their marketing pages. You can also DM them on Instagram and say, hey, I'm looking to learn about upcoming opportunities to work together. Do you have the best PR/marketing contact? And they will typically send you the email and then follow up via email with a very personal pitch. And that's going to make sure that your pitches are getting into the right hands. And so with that being said, before sending that pitch, every pitch is so different and requires a unique brand specific approach. So if you really want to be successful in the space, understanding the importance of pitching yourself and the fundamentals of how to craft that perfect pitch. So doing your research, you need to make sure brands are going to see through any BS. You are going to get the best results when you put work into your pitch and really know how to connect with that brand. So looking at their aesthetic, look at product launches, look at what you can offer. How does your demographic align with theirs? The more you can identify what you and the brand have in common and what you can do for them is really going to help you on your pitch and make you stand out. And then creating a media kit. Knowing your followers and understanding your demographics, like I said, is huge. So these are some screenshots from Canva because these are pretty aesthetic looking media kit templates. And you can download these for free and just plug in your data and your photos. Let me take a drink. And I would definitely recommend having a media kit if you want to be a creator. I don't think you need to send it all the time. I probably send it maybe 50-60% of the time. I hardly send it in the first email that I'm pitching, but just having all this information in there because they could scroll, through my Instagram and see all my content. They could look at my portfolio that I have, but really they're kind of wanting to do a quick overview. They get so many emails in their inbox a day, and my media kit needs to make me stand out, show what I can offer immediately. And I will also say, if you are going to send this, send it via a link, not an attachment. I always send a link because it's more likely to be clicked. Sometimes if you have an attachment, you know, it ends up in spam. So I would never send this on the first email, but I would have it handy because sometimes brands will follow up and be like, hey, do you have a media kit or any data you're able to share with us? And then making a good first impression. Remember that this is about them and not you. So always find ways to add that value. The aim here is to build a long-term relationship and partnership with the brand you love. There is a lack of professionalism, like I said, in the industry. So crafting that very well thought out pitch provides value and goes a long way. Call out why you want to work with them and make sure it's unique. The aim here is, you know, you want to explain who you are, why you're reaching out, share, you know, what you can do to help their brand. And I think that's going to help you. If you do that little bit of research, it's going to help you stand out a lot. And then be prepared to negotiate. This is one of my favorites, but consider how much time and effort goes into this partnership and the relationship that you're building, because a lot of times brands are not going to come in hot with their highest offer. I think it's important to know, like, what's the bare minimum? Like, what would you pay for something if you didn't know how much it cost? And so that's kind of thing. Like, I find out a creator is getting paid 10K for this, and maybe I negotiated from, and I got 8K. I'm not getting 10K, but 8K still feels good for me. But now I know, oh, I could maybe increase this price a little bit. And so just know that the first offer they come back with is never going to be the highest offer. And you can also negotiate things like the deliverables prior to, you know, decreasing the payment. So this is probably my biggest one. Is I think a lot of times with negotiations, even, you know, if you have some sort of even in the corporate world, when I was negotiating, like, I would try to negotiate a pay raise every 1 or 2 years. And if I couldn't get it, I would job hop. I was job hopping every 2 or 3 years to get that increase. And a lot of times I think we're scared that they're going to say no and just like back out or take the campaign away. That's not going to happen. If anything, we'll say, like, this is our max budget. Let me know if this works. And then, you know, like, hey, they're pretty firm at this rate, but I would always ask for more. So make sure you know how to price yourself, which is what we'll get into next. The last thing with pitching, though, is following up. If you do not hear back right away, I would do not think that's a no. Don't get bummed. Marketing managers have so much going on, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to follow up. So I would definitely send an email every month and make sure you are constantly following up. Next up is pricing. Exclusivity is probably in most contracts, and so it's something that most creators don't know about. So that's what I kind of want to touch on a little bit. We're going to break down. I just realized we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to try to talk a little faster. Pricing 101, there's production fee, distribution fee, exclusivity, usage, licensing, and additional expenses. So when you are pricing yourself, it's so important to think about that production fee. That production fee is like your shooting, editing, you're paying yourself the hourly rate. Your distribution fee is that influencer creator fee if you have a following. And that is roughly like $10 for every 1,000 followers. That is a minimum base rate. And then exclusivity, read those contracts. A lot of times brands try to sneak in exclusivity or whitelisting. That should all be extra. And then think about any additional expenses you have to pay for this campaign. Are you paying for models, props, equipment, wear and tear, gas, travel? All these go into pricing yourself. And then with pricing, follow up and create those packages. So offer a variety of different packages. Don't just offer one and done. Give them variety. That way they can kind of customize what they want, and you can create something that is very specific to them. Always send over a KPI report after you close out a partnership within like 2 weeks. That way you're following up, not only like where you follow, you know, active in the partnership, but you're also following up and being like, hey, here's how we did. Here's how many conversions we had. Here, you know, are some comments I got. Always send that KPI report. It's really going to help you stand out. And always over deliver. What I mean by that is if a company is paying you for 5 photos, you know, upload 10 to a gallery, send them 10, 15 photos. They may love all 10, 15, and they may be like, you know what, we're going to pay you more because we actually want all of these images, not the original 5 that we paid for. And then focus on that long-term versus one-off partnership. They are the most authentic and they're going to pay you the most. So I want to go over a little pricing example just really quick. So this is an example of like 2 Instagram reels, 2 Instagram carousels, 3 to 5 daily stories, and 10 B-roll clips for social use. This would be $9,600. How do you get that price? 2 videos is, you know, $4,000. 2 carousels is $2,000. You have that base content fee. This is for someone that has 100K followers. So that's $1,000 base fee. And then if you're charging any usage, which we are paying paid, you can see at the top here, we have 1 year paid digital usage. This is 30% of the content fee. And this can be so confusing. So there's a calculator that I'll send out to kind of help with that. But pricing yourself is huge, and knowing everything that goes into it, like you're probably undercharging. And you're probably going to significantly increase your earnings if you're able to know how to price yourself. What if a brand doesn't have budget? High level, thanks for letting me know. There isn't budget for this campaign at this time. I'm only accepting paid collaborations, and I'm going to have to pass on this opportunity. So keep me in mind for future opportunities. That's my go-to. That's what I say. There are also opportunities where you could do gifted campaigns. I wouldn't recommend working for free. So we won't even like really touch on that just because for sake of time. But I would just, there are things you could do if it is worth it for you to get a gifted product. You're going to buy the product anyway. There's opportunities. There have been opportunities where I've accepted a gifted product and then I have shared that product organically because I liked it and it has turned into a paid opportunity down the road. So just be strategic. No, you shouldn't be working for free. But if there are times when it makes sense, that's very personal to you and for you to decide. So I'm going to try to like really zoom through this. If that's fine, Sam, because I know we're like short on time. So we could always cut short if you need to or go over.
No, you're doing great. Yeah, there's
Okay,
one quick
perfect.
question in the Q&A. Why don't we take a pause and answer that? So the repurpose site that came up a few times, can you just remind us what that repurpose site is that you
Yes.
were talking about?
Yeah, so it's repurpose.io.
Awesome. Cool. And then which photo gallery do you use to send to companies?
I thought I had it on the screen, but you can use Pixie-Set. That's one of my favorites. I've been using that since I was like in my photography era. That's probably one of my favorites, and it's free.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. Carry on.
Okay,
That's great. Thank
perfect.
you.
All right. Okay, so we're kind of shifting gears here a little bit. So sometimes if you, especially in the travel space, I don't think I can speak about traveling full time and being able to be a full-time travel creator without credit cards and how they've helped me, mainly because some of these opportunities come up last minute. So for example, I got invited on a press trip in Germany last year, but due to how their process works, they were only able to pay for me once I was in Europe. So she was like, book a flight to Europe and then I'll handle all the logistics once you're here. So I was just like, okay, I'll get the cheapest flight to Europe. But if I didn't have points and miles, for me, like I'm not just gonna randomly decide to spend $800K or $600, $800 on a flight. Like I'm gonna hopefully try to use points. And I have another tourism partnership next week, and they said the same thing. Like they're only not going to cover flights, which isn't actually very normal in a tourism partnership. Everything is typically like covered, but because of that, I wanted to do a high level touch point on strategic financial planner. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I do have to say that just because I want to be really transparent, but I am incredibly great with money. I've paid off over 70K in my 20s and have saved multiple hundreds figures. And it's only because of being really strategic and understanding how to make my money work harder for me. So with that being said, before you set off on your adventure, you want to determine how much money you need to save and how much you plan to spend on your travels. So traveling full time, this is kind of how I first started off, like budgeting for my trips. I always like to think of anything in life as like this concept time poor versus cash poor. So if I'm time poor, I might not have as much flexibility on dates and timing because I'm tied to a certain timing, which means I'm going to end up paying more. If I'm cash poor, I won't have, if I'm cash poor, I won't have as much, flexibility on timing. I'm going to have to take that cheapest flight. But if I'm cash poor, I'm going to have to be, you're either always choosing, can I spend more money or do I have more time? And I think that's important to know whenever you're planning your trip. And so always having some sort of budgeting, which we know. And then travel hacking in general is the main part of this. So travel hacking is basically credit card hacking, miles hacking. This specifically applies to those of us in the US, just because our credit cards work a little bit different here. But it's basically redeeming miles for flights and hotels. And so this is an example of what one of my reward programs portal looks like. And I wanted to share this because this is a real life example of kind of how it all adds up. And it really does open up travel opportunities and helps you go to places that you really never thought possible. So my first trip to Europe was actually paid for with points. And that's where I first started learning about travel hacking, maybe like 10 years ago at this point, 8 years ago. But I signed up for this card. I remember being so scared because I was so scared of the annual fee, but I earned 100,000 points and I got $300 travel credit. So with those points, I was able to book my hotel and my Europe flights, and it was free. I was like, this is insane. Like it helped me save so much money and it helped me get rewarded by using that credit card. Like here's how the reward system looks, but you're basically rewarded for purchases you're already making. So hot topic here, but I've like literally never used a debit card since going to credit cards. As long as you pay your credit card off in full every single month, it is truly game changing. And it only works by, you open up your credit card, you have a sign-on bonus, and then you meet that minimum spend, and then you earn as many miles as possible, and then you redeem those for flights or hotels. I will say this is a commitment. Like I spend hours a week looking into the best offers. And because I have a partner, I'm very strategic with how we align the credit card. We each get one, like we take turns getting one. But I've gotten like my family into it fun as well. So it's so fun. We're about to fly first class to Europe, and that's something they never would have thought was possible for them. But because they understand this now too, they're into it. And obviously the only risk here is if you don't pay your credit card off in full. And the way the bank systems work, it kind of is scammy. There's a lot of credit card debt in the US. So as long as you're not adding to that problem, there are ways to take advantage of the offerings that credit cards offer. They're there and you can be strategic with using them. And then the different types of credit cards, there's cash back, which we're kind of all familiar. You earn a basic cash back for spending on anything. There are miles, hotel specific cards, and then there are points cards. These are kind of what those look like. An airline is only able to be used on that airline, whether it's United, Southwest. Bank cards offer you so much flexibility with transfer partners, and then hotel cards are only available for certain hotels. So picking a card that works for you. A lot of people don't know what to look for when looking at a credit card. So high level, it's like the brand affiliation. Right here is Capital One. The sign-on bonus is 75,000 miles when you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months. And then the annual fee is $95. That's kind of how you would analyze that. And you're like, okay, well, can I spend $4,000 in 3 months? Do I have any upcoming spend? I think it's important to think about how you're going to meet that minimum spend. And so it's always like, I'm not going to sign up for this card if I can't meet that minimum spend. If I'm not spending 4K in 3 months, I'm not going to do it. A lot of times my dad goes really big for Christmas. I have like 11 siblings, so he's wild. And he will get 2 or 3 credit cards around Christmas time because he just knows he's going to be doing everything for everyone. The other thing is using gift cards. Sometimes if I have a minimum spend and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be in the US and I have $400 left to spend, I'll just buy a $400 gift card to like Whole Foods or something because I know I'll use it when I get back. Pay for large purchases, pick up the tab and get paid back. Sometimes I do that with friends. And then wait for the right timing. Wait till it makes sense for you. And then reward programs. I just want to share this example because right now there are so many fun ways to get to Europe. There's a lot of transfer bonuses right now. And so like, for example, this flight to Europe on Flying Blue is 15,000 points, but there's a 30% bonus. So it's under 11K after the transfer bonus. But you can see like down here, it's 52,000 miles. So just finding that award availability and then having a credit card that allows me to transfer to Flying Blue allows me to get to Europe for under 24,000 points round trip, which is wild. The other aspect is that there are something called transfer partners that get opened up when you have a credit card. So on Delta, for example, this flight is 20,000 points economy or 61,000 points in first. But I can transfer if I have a transfer bank card. So Capital One, Chase, they're all kind of offer this. But right now there's a transfer partner to Virgin Atlantic. So I could get the same flight that's on Delta for 20,000 or 11,000 miles on Virgin Atlantic or 61,000 points on Delta or 41,000 on Virgin Atlantic. And it ends up even being cheaper because of that 30% transfer bonus. But it's like the same airline, like the same flight can be booked on multiple different airlines because airlines have partnerships with each other, but that only gets opened up if you have credit card points to do so. So one of my favorite examples of all time, I'm just going to share. I booked a one-way flight to Switzerland, and then I didn't even think about booking a way back until I was like, oh, I'll probably want to go back this week. And so then I looked, and that flight was $2,100. And so I was like, well, I will not be paying that for an economy seats. But because I had credit card points, I was able to book that flight for 30,000 miles or $51.13, which honestly is so incredible. And I will just never go back. Like being able to, like right now, I'm potentially doing something with Portugal and I might have to buy my flights. I have noticed working with like European tourism boards or basically anyone outside of the US, purchasing your flights is a bit more common. And it is peak season right now. So it's like being able to find points is going to help me so much. And I will just never not preach about this because it's actually changed my life with travel. So I tried to go over that section pretty quickly. But after this webinar, I want you to do the work. So create a portfolio, make a list of the 10 to 15 tourism brands, tourism boards or brands that you want to work with. Draft up 2 to 3 digital product ideas that you can actually execute. And the idea is to get an idea. The thought here is like we want to encourage ourselves to get an idea and execute it on it quickly. We do not want to be sitting on ideas. Like we just want to keep executing and see what works. So identify your different packages and how you can upsell your contents. Sign up for some of those brand platforms that I shared and affiliate marketing platforms to start. It's such a great passive way to earn money for products or companies you're already working with or using. And then start building your email list. Flowdesk is one of my favorites. I think I'll send like a resource guide and these slides after the class. If you're interested, there will be a QR code on the next slide you can scan to sign up to get those. But start building out your email list, and Flowdesk is one of my favorite for that. DM me if you have any questions. Like I said, I'm better at DMs than text even, so I will get back to you hopefully pretty quickly. And then considering opening up your first travel card, now is the great time to do it, only because it's going to really it takes like 3 or 4 months to get those points. So that's going to help you plan for summer or fall travel. And then, like I said, there's a QR code on this slide. So I will send you the resources after this class if you want to sign up. But if there are any questions, I would love to answer them. Sorry, we spoke really quickly towards the end there. I wanted to get it all in.
No, that was great. We can take a couple questions if you're up for that.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Okay, cool. Let's see. What is the best way to use affiliate links on short form social platforms?
That's a great question.
Links aren't clickable on a lot of platforms. Link in bio, story stickers have low conversion rates. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do find that every time I share a story, it's typically like really low, like with a link or something, it's super low conversion. I just don't think Instagram loves us encouraging people to click out of the app. So ManyChat, it is my favorite thing. Like with ManyChat, you can say, comment backpack and I'll send you a link to this backpack, or comment travel or comment essentials and I'll send you a link to my favorite travel essentials. And you can also create flows where then you send them that initial link. And then it's like, do you want to opt in or you want to join my mailing list? Like with that one automated message, you can get them on an email list or maybe perhaps upsell them on something else. So ManyChat, I think it is like the greatest thing right now. It is so helpful. And I think it's also like encouraging people to engage more because they want to know. It's like the same thing when I said comment transfer to get this video. There was like a process workflow there in that ManyChat, but 1,000 comments, like that's actually kind of crazy because it's just sending them a video, which is another piece of content that I already had. So ManyChat, I can't recommend it enough. I think I actually have, shamelessly, I think I have a referral to get you like 2 months free or something. So if you want to try it, let me know.
For sure. Do you want to put that in the chat? We'll take one more question. So this is from Stephanie regarding the pricing 101 module. Are the prices similar for UGC pricing for hotels and brands?
So hotels, I will say, probably charge or pay the least, at least in my experience. There are some people out there that are probably working with hotels in a very different capacity, like expert photographers, and they can charge for that. Hotels typically do like comp stays. There have been a few times where I've gotten paid by a hotel, but it's like you really got to like sell them. I think they're kind of like old school in that sense. But every industry and every hotel will vary. Like if you're going to a really popular hotel, for example, who gets a lot of like inquiries, they may not like want to give you any budget because they're like, we get 100 people a day, like we're just hosting, that's all we're doing. Whereas like maybe you find a bit of a more boutique hotel, and it's in Vermont, and 90% of your audience is in Vermont, so it's more likely to convert. They're probably going to be more willing to pay you because your audience and your demographics align so much. So every campaign is really different. That's why, like, especially with UGC or the pricing module as a creator, I think it's so important to have packages and understand what your base rate is. It's kind of like, I say, like, what would you pay for a Gucci bag if you didn't know what people were paying? Like, I personally am like, I don't really care. I probably wouldn't pay that much. But I think about that in terms of like creating content. Like, what do you want to get charged if you didn't know what anyone else is charging? Are you happy with $400, or do you need $1,000? And don't be afraid that your rate's too low, because there have been times like I just did a deal with a brand and they were like, our budget's 2,000, and I'm like, I need 8, and they were like, okay. Their budgets make no sense sometimes. I think you just have to kind of say what you want, and they will come back with a yes or no, and you can decide if it's worth lowering your prices for them. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but I'm pricing is like my favorite topic.
It's complex. There's a lot of things to factor in there. One of my
So much.
friends is working on a real-time pricing calculator for creators. I don't know if you've heard of Norm, but this is what she's created using AI and all these data sets where you put in the
Oh,
details, you put in the scope of it, and it tells you in real time what you should charge. So I think more and more solutions are coming into the space for sure.
amazing. Amazing. I love
Mhm.
that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. That's all we have for today. Yes, this will be recorded and put on our YouTube channel with the rest of those. So thank you everybody for joining in. And thank you, Leona.
Thank you so much.